Now then, you're very welcome back. So we're turning to the Super 8s, which get underway this weekend, and we've quite the lineup. On Saturday, Dublin against Cork in Croke Park throws in at 7. Before that, at the Hyde, it will be Roscommon against Tyrone. And then on Sunday, Donegal against Meath and Ballybuffets at 2. And at Killarney, all eyes on Kerry against Mayo at 4 o'clock. If you missed OTB AM this morning, Michael Quinlivan on with the lads. For one thing, he does not reckon Lee Keegan is going to start that game for Mayo.
Do you expect James O'Donoghue to start?
I don't think so. I don't
think so. No, I think
they can't play him, but it means dropping Gainey or David Clifford.
Yeah.
And given the fitness issues, Gainey edges James O'Donoghue at this point.
Yeah, and I think James O'Donoghue is a big player to be bringing off the bench. I'm also not sure Keegan will start, to be honest.
Right. Okay.
He only got injured a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
And I only just, from personal experience, I've done an ankle injury, and you can get it to a certain stage, and about 4 weeks later I came back. Now his mightn't be as bad as mine, fair enough, that it might be different. It could have been just a twisted ankle, and that's all right. But when you come back, I came back and played 15 minutes, and the following weekend I was like, do you know what, I'm ready to go in here, I'm fine. And I'm playing in the inside forward line, remember, so I don't have the 80-yard bursts that he does. But when it came to the following weekend, the pressure of running on it constantly for 70 minutes really had me in a lot of bother. And I think he did 10 minutes last weekend. I think they'll hold him and maybe look for maybe 20 or 25 this weekend.
Right.
I think because of how cagey the game might be for the first 20 or 25 minutes, I think he's a huge presence to bring on. He lifts the whole team when he comes on again, and they're going to need that going into the last 20 minutes because of the games that they've already played.
Michael Quinlivan there with Gerard Nolan this morning, OTB AM. Every morning, 7:30, brought to you by Avantcard, powered by MasterCard. Kieran Donaghy with the lads on the shot clock tomorrow morning. We have with us to look ahead to the weekend and specifically events in Killarney. Dara O'Connor with us and Billy Joe Padden. Evening, lads.
Evening, Joe.
Good evening, Joe.
So this time last year we were headed for the Super 8's year 1 of a 3-year experiment, and Billy Joe, if memory serves me correct, everything was at Croke Park. It was fairly drab weather, the games weren't spectacular, and this promised festival of football never took off. I think we're feeling a bit more excited by the lineup of weekend 1 for year 2.
I think so, and I think the format in that the provincial winners get a home game is obviously the right thing to do. It's created this sort of unique matchup, particularly in Killarney, where Mayo get the opportunity to go there and test themselves against Kerry in their home venue after beating their local rival Galway last week. So I think it creates people are looking forward to it a bit more. And maybe it's the case that Mayo weren't in the Super 8s last year, and the country missed that sort of bandwagon that they bring. But at the same time, I think you just see you've got good matchups that you're looking forward to, whether it be the resurgence of Cork, see how they fare out against Dublin. But I think everyone really is looking forward to that game between Kerry and Mayo because of their recent history. And because both, if you're looking for a team to knock the Dubs off their perch as such, the last couple of years you probably would have been thinking that Mayo and Kerry were top of that list.
Dara, I was reading last year the average winning margin was 6-7 points in the Super 8s. There were, I think, 3 double-digit hammerings as well. The lineup is better this year, you could argue. You need a bit of luck given the qualifiers. You can't have too many big teams taking each other out of the equation. We basically have Division 1 teams, Donegal and an intriguing Cork side making up the Super 8. So it's probably a better lineup as much as anything than last year's.
You'd hope so, but I do think, and it's one lesson that Kerry did learn as well last year, it just didn't feel right in Croke Park the first day out for some reason. I'm not so sure, Billy Joe, if it was Mayo missing or whatever, but it definitely it didn't have that buzz about it. The games weren't that great, and when Croke Park isn't full, when it's not rocking like that, you're as well off doing what they did, get it back, give the provincial champions their home venue. And, Kerry, looking at it last year, never really recovered from that loss to Galway in Croke Park that day. And, it just didn't work as an event. It didn't work as a spectacle. This time out, as you say, the provincial champions had to be rewarded with something. And, having a home advantage for your first game was huge. I know it's not the end of the world, whoever loses the next day or it's a draw or whatever, but we definitely down in Kerry feel after last year that you have to win your first game, and it's a big one for Kerry on Sunday. And the home advantage should be made. It should be made to count for something. You know, it has to count for something. And it's 24 years since Kerry lost in Killarney. It's been spoken about this week down in Kerry. You know, that Cork in 1995 was the last playing myself the same day, with the last team to beat Kerry at home. And you say to yourself, yes, a lot of that was a lot of Munster teams, but there has to be some reason for it as well. And the reason being just a familiarity, sleeping in your own bed. The advantages that we all know that other teams have, you know, when they, let's say Dublin get accused of it a lot, you know, playing in their home venue in Croke Park. Kerry do have a thing in Killarney. They like playing there. It doesn't have any kind of hidden secrets or anything like that opposition teams shouldn't figure out. They have been beaten in league games there. You know, Monaghan most recently beat them, and they are beatable there, but in championship football they haven't been beaten in 24 years. And it's a proud record to defend, and it was a good move, you know, to make that little tweak to the system this year to give the provincial champions a home venue. No excuses on Sunday.
And Dara, the players would all stay in their own beds for Killarney games still for championship, yeah?
I would imagine so. I'm not privy to what goes on inside in Kerry, but it would be foolish of them, I suppose, to bring them together on a Saturday night before the game. I think there is going to be, you know, carnival atmosphere probably around Killarney. Mayo, as we know, will travel in numbers, will bring great fanfare to it. I think there was a lot of happy publicans and business people in Killarney when Mayo came through, as opposed to Galway the last day. Certainly no slight in Galway, but you know, Mayo just bring that bandwagon to it, like, and you know, it would be foolish of Kerry to do anything other than the routine that they would have, and they would use Fitzgerald Stadium, although the centre of excellence is there in Corrins and they have been using it the last time I gather. Killarney is still very much the home pitch as a Kerry footballer. Even back in my time, you did want to get into Killarney. You wanted, you know, the evenings to stretch out in May and to get into training in Killarney. It has that feel to it. It's a place I always love playing. It's a place every Kerry footballer loves playing, and as I say, no safety net, no excuses on Sunday if they don't perform.
And even the press box where the media are must be one of the most picturesque views you could have in all of world sport. It's really an amazing view from up there. Billy Joe, Dara referenced it there about the importance of winning your first match. That was one of the more surprising aspects I found last year, because we all went into it talking about this thing as a round robin and a league and second chances, but momentum being a curious thing and various other intangibles. If you lost your first match, you really were behind the eight ball. And Kerry, with home advantage this weekend, you feel they have to win, because say they lose this, then fast forward a week and you're up in Croke Park against a brilliant Donegal side, and this you could be in real trouble. Mayo have Meath in Croker the following week, which isn't so bad, but winning that first game has taken on, I feel, a greater importance than we all thought last year.
I think so, and I think, as Dara says, there's no excuses for Kerry. Particularly, it's a good thing maybe in one way that you have your home game first, but you really have to win it. That home game is so important because you have the Croke Park games next weekend. As you rightly pointed out, that's going to be a really close game between themselves and Donegal, both teams performing well. So if Mayo if Mayo are to lose and Kerry are to win, Mayo still have that chance of going to Croke Park against Meath and then having their home game as the very last fixture against Donegal. So I think more of the pressure will be on Donegal, but at the same time, or on Kerry, but at the same time, they have the advantage of being fresh coming into this. They've had a real good look at Mayo over the last number of weeks. They've seen the strengths and weaknesses. Mayo will be dealing with a bit of fatigue, where Kerry probably have had a decent rest coming into it. And I think those advantages that Kerry have are probably in their favour, particularly added to the fact that they know this venue so well, and it's a new experience for Mayo playing a championship game in Kerry.
Billy Joe, I saw you on Sky Sports Studio at the weekend. Afterwards, it looked like a Justin Bieber mosh pit that you found yourself in.
I want to thank you for pointing that out on Twitter as well, Joe. Yeah.
Are they your adoring fans? They are.
No, I'm afraid they don't know who I am. Maybe if Aidan O'Shea or Killian O'Connor was there, they'd get even more excited. God love them.
Yeah,
but
carnage kicked off.
Yeah. I think for Mayo supporters, after the disappointment of the Roscommon game, I think everyone was just really happy that Mayo managed to find themselves back in the Super 8, where you're guaranteed the 3 games. You're going to test yourself against the best. And we know that Mayo under James Horan are going to play the same brand of football. They're going to go for it for the first minute. And they'll have their opportunities. Now, whether they can sustain the energy levels that are required to play that type of game over the 3 weeks, having just gone through what they have with the 3 qualifier games, will be a big question mark for me. But at the same time, you look at it from another point of view, they're getting battle-hardened, and some of their forwards in particular are coming into a bit of form. So they're going to be a dangerous opponent for Kerry. But I just worry about the last 20 minutes for them against Kerry, in big wide open pitch. What's promised to be a reasonably hot day as well. It's going to be difficult for them.
Yeah, it's a fair point, because I was going to say to you, so far so good on that front. The real fear when they got knocked out by Roscommon was that they might reach the Super 8s, but they might get there limping and out of gas, and almost in a similar state to where they were for Newbridge last year, very vulnerable and just out of gas. It looks to my eye, the Galway performance, like it was their best performance of the year. James Horan, I know from talking to him down the years, is big on syncing up the forwards, and you're seeing brilliant movement in that forward line. A man gets a ball, he turns, and it triggers movement for inside him, and there's always options, and it looks to be humming, and they look to be developing and understanding. And you throw in the likes of James Carr and Cohen, at 27 and overnight success, but his inter-county career finally getting going properly. He's kicked 12 points in 3 games. So you look at Cohen and Carr, Andy Moran, they're not relying on Andy Moran to be the footballer of the year again. I thought, he's this reasonably positive. I do take your point about the energy, but I mean, Mayo fans must be buoyed by what they're seeing.
Yes, and they would not be in the Super 8s without the contribution of Fionn McDonough and Darren Cohen and Carr the last day, because they've had difficulty with some of the older players being injured. You've lost, Matty Ruan as a young player, but you've lost Dermot O'Connor. Paddy Durkin, had to come off injured the last day. We don't know what he's going to be like for the weekend, the Lee Keegan injury. And I think that's probably the most positive thing about Mayo's run in the last couple of weeks has been the form of those young forwards. And it's not very often you go into a big game like that Galway game was, and you come away from it thinking, well, they won that game on the back of the forward line, because Cillian O'Connor was good again, James Carr was explosive, and Darren Cohen was just that sort of footballer that Mayo haven't had, where he gets 3 or 4 looks at the posts and he scores 3 points.
Yeah.
And that has been hugely positive. And I think the fact that Cillian O'Connor now probably has Darren Cohen and Carr, players that are also comfortable playing very, very close to goal in the full forward line, that it gives him that license that he doesn't have to be that focal point all of the time, that he can come out the field and get involved. And I think that really helped him get into the game the last day against Galway. And it means that the whole forward line works much better, because you have Kevin McLaughlin out there playmaking. And I thought Jason Doherty was exceptional against Galway in terms of doing the dirty stuff, winning breaks, working hard, moving the ball up the field, and then he kicked a great score himself. So you're looking at a situation where the forwards are playing well, and that's something that you really need going to Kerry.
So Dara, the eternal question over the last number of years when Kerry come out of Munster, where are they?
I suppose this time last year we thought we were in a great spot. Good performance down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and just hit the wall against Galway. As I say, never really recovered. I don't think Kerry were as bad as people suspect. Their deficiencies are kind of obvious. I'm sure there's an awful lot of work done on the defensive side of the game. They have been conceding goals. They conceded 3-7 in the National League final against Mayo, 3-10 against Cork the last time out. And, goals are going to do damage, and they are hurting Kerry an awful lot. And that's a concern. But I suppose like Donny Buckley and Tommy Griffin come with very strong reputations for defensive play. They are missing Peter Crowley, who's probably one of their primary markers, and he did start that National League final. So they're down in that regard. But I suppose the aim is always going to be, from a Kerry point of view this year, is to kind of paper over those deficiencies by winning midfield, by winning enough possession, by not having teams run at you. And I'm sure there's been so much talk about it. They got so much criticism, even though they won a Munster title against what possibly turned out to be a little better Cork team than maybe people would have perceived at the time a number of weeks ago. And that's definitely a plus. So Kerry aren't that bad. I don't think Kerry are, as bad as people make out. They got to a league final. They got beaten twice this year by Mayo in St. Patrick's weekend and in a National League final, and there is progress being made, and they certainly have legs. Mayo are going to have huge energy between 5 and 12, but Kerry have that energy as well. It's just about boxing clever now. They have the forwards, and I think there's an expectation within the Kerry public all week that there is a performance in this team, that they will get enough ammunition supplied to the likes of David Clifford and Shawnee O'Shea and these lads that will hurt most teams out there. And, I think they're a bit stung. I think they're probably a bit stung. If I was a Kerry footballer inside in that bubble now, I'd be a bit stung by the criticism of a Munster final performance. And I do think that these lads have won an awful lot. The younger lads have won a good bit. The older lads, have shown great leadership. Stephen O'Brien has been absolutely fantastic for the last year and a half. He's a player that's come on a ton. And I think they are playing for a lot on Sunday, and they're defending a proud record in Killarney as well. So I don't think Kerry are half as bad as people have been making out. I'd say they'd be happy enough with progress and intent on giving a performance on Sunday.
We had Kieran Donaghy on a couple of weeks ago, and he made an interesting observation if we're talking about footballing cultures. He said, it's no coincidence we struggle with teams that run at us because we really don't do a lot of running at ourselves in training. And talked about even club football, that, you know, the kick pass is king. And so maybe defenders aren't as practiced at dealing with teams running onto them. That said, look, Kerry wouldn't have won these All-Irelands if they couldn't deal with that in the past. I'd be shocked, Dara, if Mayo find the same joy running at Kerry that Cork did. You just would presume it's been a priority in training over the last couple of weeks.
It would be very disappointed if the same, I won't say mistakes, but if the same fault lines start to appear again and again. You know, they're clever management. They know what they're at. Donny Buckley would come, you know, with an awful lot of kudos. You know, I'm sure he was dealing with some very brilliant natural defenders like Chris Barrett and Keith Higgins and Lee Keegan and Paddy Durcan and these lads in Mayo anyway. But defensively, they looked very good. And, you know, I'm sure Donny Buckley had some percentage to do, you know, of an input there. And, you know, the hallmark of the minor teams of the last number of years as their swarm defence has been quite good. You know, when a player struggles and when a player's momentum is stalled, they were very good at stripping possession. But these gaps have been appearing. And, you know, anybody in Kerry will tell you, anybody who watches club football in Kerry will tell you that there aren't a whole lot of out and out man marking defenders there. But who has them anymore? Are there many of them there even, you know? So yeah, if the same fault lines happen to appear on Sunday, it would be surprising. And you know, it's not like we haven't seen this one coming. You know, Mayo tend to run at you. They have a lot of pace. They have been mixing it up very well lately, as you've just said. Like, I mean, one of the noteworthy features of the Galway game is the amount of ball that a Mayo forward would collect with his back to the goal and turn to his right or left hand side and give us another successive kick pass inside.
Yes.
That doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah.
It's by design. So, you know, I think Kerry are well forewarned as to Mayo's intentions and abilities the next day. So again, I would be disappointed if we were conceding 3 goals, for example, the next day.
Billy Joe, I want to ask you about David Moran versus O'Shea in a second, but one last one for you first, Dara, on some of the matchups. You could argue one of the reasons Mayo can play the brand of football they do is that their defenders, maybe not out and out man markers, but they can often get the better of their men. So it's going to be fascinating to see, you know, at this stage in their development, how the likes of Clifford and Shawnee O'Shea go against kind of this almost infamous defence now, you know, these household names who've been around for a long time. So talk to us about what Kerry are going to do up top against this Mayo team.
You know, they're going to try and get as much ball as they can to the 2 lads that you've mentioned. I mean, there's a lot of train of thought out there that maybe the likes of Sean O'Shea or perhaps even Gavin White might be, you know, well suited to partnering David Moran at midfield. We don't know. They're certainly capable of it. But one of the abiding memories I have coming out of Croke Park in the National League final this year was, you know, Lee Keegan gave Sean O'Shea a fair bit of attention, you know, and it was a major school day for Sean O'Shea, you know, in terms of how you can get, you know, remove yourself from the game as a force. Sean O'Shea's imprint in that game was minimal enough, you know. But as I said, I think Stephen O'Brien is going to do what he does. He runs at defences, you know. If he was running at the Kerry defence, you know, and that's a, you know, it may be in contradiction to what Kieran Donaghy had to say a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure Stephen O'Brien runs at you inside in training, you know, and that's what he does at club football. That's what he, you know, and they do have players that will run at you, you know. So I'm sure they are being encouraged. You know, Paul Gainey, whom we know, who was an all-star footballer in 2016 and 17, he's got to hit the heights again. And I'm sure, you know, his age profile and his ability will suggest that he can do that. David Clifford will bring what David Clifford brings. Just you have to get him in possession of the ball as often as you can. I mean, the last time we played Mayo in the National League final, we had Tommy Welch matched up with Chris Barrett. You know, I was listening to the thinking that maybe Lee Keegan wouldn't start the next day, but because he did so well in Sean O'Shea, you'd imagine, you know, managers like to think like that. This guy blots a good player out of it, so let's do it again. Yeah. You know, Brendan Harrison has to probably match up with David Clifford because, you know, Brendan Harrison has done good jobs on, you know, quality forwards like David Clifford before. Yeah. There's massive potential in this Kerry team and this Kerry forward line, you know, and I think we're only seeing. It's only over the next year to 18 months you're going to see that it's going to be tapped into. Like, but it's key that you get enough possession, to hide the cracks at the back, and just to supply the bullets to the lads up front. Right.
Well, then I might move to get your predictions, and let's boil it down to possession for a second, then, Derek, because as you rightly say, it's going to be crucial. Billy Joe, it's hard to forget the time in 2014 in Limerick when David Moran had 47 possessions. There's a ridiculous kind of performance. Aidan O'Shea's looking pretty good at the moment, so told us that midfield battle is going to be an absolute joy to watch, and it'll go a long way towards dictating things.
I think so. Aidan O'Shea is a huge player for Mayo over these last number of weeks, but if Mayo are going to win in Kerry, he'll have to have a major game. He did not look right against Galway last week. He didn't. Did
you not think so? No.
No, he didn't look like he moved around the pitch as well. There was difficulties with Peter Cook running off him in the first half. Now he was trying to jump, get in there at number 6 and help out defensively. Yeah. And there was a bit of a mismatch there. Dave Moran brings you a totally different challenge in the middle of the field. While he has great football ability and has a great long-range shot, he's not going to be as mobile as Peter Cook is. So I think it'll be more of a traditional midfield battle between Aidan O'Shea and himself. I think for Kerry's point of view, Kerry are at their best when Dave Moran is on the ball a lot, because he's a really good footballer. He's a great range of pass, and he usually makes the right decision, and he's an outside shot from long range. And if you're going to beat Mayo, you have to dominate around the middle of the field, because what Mayo will want to do is win that area of the field and press you and keep you in your own half. And against the Kerry defence, where maybe some people have said they're weaker, that's not a situation they want to find themselves in, because Mayo will really try and press them all over the field. But I think that the key thing for Mayo is that Aidan gets back to the maybe level he was 2 weeks ago, and then they'll be in a pretty good position in terms of getting the required amount of ball into that forward line, and that's what they will need, because they're going to probably need goals again to beat Kerry, because as I said earlier on, I expect Kerry to be strong late on in the game. And I just think that the need for the win is greater in Kerry, considering it's a home game, considering if they can't really beat Mayo at home, how will that affect their mindset when they're thinking about trying to stop Dublin from winning 5 in a row? That would be a huge blow to them. So I think Kerry will be really, really motivated to get the 2 points early on at home.
Okay. Predictions then, fellas. Billy Joe?
I'm going to go for Kerry to just be stronger in the last 10.
Okay. Dara?
I think home advantage has to come for something. It's not going to kick the ball over the bar field, but Kerry have a lot to play for. And I think the need is great, and I think they're stung after the criticism of the Munster final performance and expecting a big performance on Sunday.
Okay, fellas, thanks very much. Dara O'Connor, Billy Joe Padden, cheers for that.
No problem.
Cheers. And by the way, Kerry fans, bear in mind, in a couple of weeks we're going to be down in Killarney ourselves. Our Super Value Roadshows continue. We'll be down at Dr. Croke's, Where Better, with a host of Kerry legends. It's going to be on Wednesday, July 31st. And if you go to offtheball.com/events, you'll get your details for that. That's all with thanks to our friends at Super Value. The lads are in Gweedore this evening. So it's Killarney on July 31st. Short break, back in a sec.